Hello, my name is Asha Hermona, and today I'm going to present to you my final project on drug trafficking. What exactly is drug trafficking? It is the global illicit trade involving the cultivation, manufacture, distribution, and sale of substances which are subject to drug prohibition laws, according to the United Nations report. Overall, it is when drugs are imported in a large scale from another country or from different parts of the world, which I will be elaborating more on the next slide. So as you can see on this slide, here are the different routes of drug trafficking from around the world. For instance, the red arrows are opiates and the green arrows are cocaine. So, mainly from Latin America, we have a large scale of cocaine spreading all throughout the world, which is common because, or not common, but normal because there are many plants and tropical areas where the cultivation is able to grow in these areas and then spread out throughout the world. And also in Asia, they have the plants to create opiates and therefore manufacture it throughout the world. So we see how it comes not only to the United States, but to Europe, to Africa, through everywhere around the world. But here's a more in depth look of drug trafficking in the actual United States. We see how in Florida there's a larger scale, or not larger scale, but there is a good influx of drug trafficking in here, not only from history, from the past, we have had a lot of imports of drugs from Latin America, but also because we are on the coast and also known as like the drug city, I believe. So now I'm going to talk to you about the different types of drug traffic according to the DEA. So most of it is methamphetamine with 33.6%. Then we have cocaine, which is 19.8%. Then marijuana, which is 17.6%. Heroin with 14.4%. Crack with 8.1%. And oxycodone with 2.8%. Now, in more recent terms, marijuana might not be looked as such, or not looked as, but not as grave as other types of drugs because in many parts of the United States, it is legal now. So now, how exactly are drugs brought into the United States specifically? So here are the five main drug cartels, which from Mexico, which are the biggest import of drugs. So we have the Sinaloa cartel, the Jalisco New Generation cartel, the Juarez cartel, the Gulf cartel, the Los Zetas cartel, and the Beltran Leyva organization cartel. These are the five main ones that are a big issue bringing in drugs to the United States. But also here are the different types as we can see in the graph. And also from 2014 to 2018. In recent years, they have been, as we can see as shown in the graph, mainly through land. A lot of drugs have been imported or smuggled in through probably cars or a person itself that maybe the guards didn't see or they did see, but it's how they were smuggled. Also through land, or excuse me, through the air, through airplanes, they could easily be smuggled because sometimes they on these other countries they might not have proper scannings or proper ways or as advanced technology as we have here in the United States to detect these drugs. And also through sea, not as much, but still it's possible because also the Coast Guard could get them. Then now on to exactly how drugs are being caught in the United States. So the Coast Guard is um, a big catcher, I guess you call, of these um, smugglers by finding boats in the ocean and breaking them open, or not only boats, but a lot of the time submarines. And there's been videos out on the internet that you may see how the Coast Guard go and catch these smugglers and arrest them. Also, the DEA easily could track them because obviously it's the agency. They have connections, they have ways and of tracking and having um, other people in source to tell them. And also Border Patrol, when people are, since land is one, as previously stated, land is one of the biggest ways that drugs are brought into the United States, or through land, excuse me. Border Patrol typically always checks the cars when coming in through the border, and there they can easily find them. So here in this chart, we see from also 2014 to 2018 how these drugs were caught, and mainly it was through when they were coming into the United States and not out of, which is amazing because it is stopping the continuous flow and want and the economy and feeding into these cartels and this mass global um economy of drug trafficking that is insane, super illegal and wrong, which should be stopped. Now on to trafficking charges. So in the state of Florida, and these are specific to the state of Florida, and the chart is more federal. So in the state of Florida, anywhere from 28 to 200 grams of any drug can get you a minimum prison sentence of 3 years and a $50,000 fine. Then when it goes up to 200 to 400 grams, there's a minimum prison sentence of 7 years and $100,000 fine. Then when it's 400 grams to 150 kilograms, the minimum prison sentence is 15 years and a fine of $2,500. Excuse me. Then in a federal level, depending on the drug, as you could see on the chart in the the left hand side, methamphetamine, heroin, and the different levels of drugs can get you no less than 5 years or no more than 40 years. But that's only when you have a certain amount of grams of the drug. And also depending on your first or second offense, but depending on the level of your offense or how many times it's been committed, you could end up serving a life sentence. For instance, the infamous El Chapo, he was one of the biggest, or still is one of the biggest cartel heads, or well, not his sons, however, but cartel heads in Mexico. So he currently is serving a life sentence due to the mass drug cartel he was running in drug trafficking, not only to the United States, but to many places around the world. Now, a little bit about history of drug trafficking. So the notorious Pablo Escobar is one of the pioneers, I guess you could say, of drug trafficking in the world. He was one of the first, he was head of the Medellin cartel in Colombia back in the 60s to 80s. And he had a huge, I guess, corporation you could call of drug trafficking around the world. He was one of the biggest and most renowned till this day drug traffickers, and he even brought in drugs into Miami, which is obviously local to us. Then the cocaine cowboys were specifically in Miami, which was a combination of Colombian cartels such as the Medellin cartel and Cubans, Cuban Americans that came together to smuggle cocaine specifically into Miami through their boats. As you could see in the bottom boat with the helicopter. They smuggled in drugs very not easily, I guess, but still smuggled in a lot amount of drugs into Miami, which then spread out in a network to the rest of the United States, and then which also caused the Miami drug wars, which you can see in above the boat picture where there's a gurney and ambulance, which is also known as the Dayland shooting, which was caused because of the cocaine cowboys. There was a shootout between a cartel and gang members, and therefore many people got hurt, and this was all because of drugs. And these are small examples, but Miami was one of the biggest back in the 80s on drugs. At everywhere there was drugs that you can find it. Well, still to this day, but not as large scale as it was before. And also, we were a main hub and port for these drugs to come across the United States. But also, why is drug trafficking an issue? Not only because of the humane and moral of people, but also because many people are suffering and dying because of these drugs, especially because of opium related drugs, and the overdoses because of these drugs. As you can see here, um, mainly heroin and morphine are killing people, or people are overdosing due to these drugs. Cocaine still a little bit, but mainly heroin and opium. And the opium crisis in the United States has continuously gone up because due to the fact that people get them prescribed and then they get addicted to them, so then they use them for the rest of their lives, but then they don't, or they keep on doing them, for example, after a surgery or something. um, these people continue getting them and they don't realize the harm that is causing them, and they overdose. So this is why there should be an end to drug trafficking. Now, how exactly to put an end to this drug trafficking, I will state in the next slide. So how can we end drug trafficking? Well, as suggested from a Latin American community or corp group, I guess you could say. First, the United States should step in to Latin American countries and try to abolish the money laundering and counterfeiting that drug trafficking also causes, because without this, it's easier for people to suspect or to catch these drug traffickers, because how else are they going to hide the money? Then also to place higher sanctions and time for these drug traffickers so they won't commit these crimes again, and also to rehabilitate the people who suffer from an increase, or not increase, but who suffer from wanting the drugs, to rehabilitate them, put them in rehab, make sure they don't want them anymore, so people don't demand the drugs as much, and there isn't a big issue about it. These are my references, and overall, drug trafficking not only causes all these issues as I previously stated, but there's also a more large scale effect. Not only are people dying, not only is it unmoral to do, and but also there's many other issues that come with it, such as money laundering, which I said previously, and also um, a lot of violence in order to for these drugs, because cartels form rivalries against each other, and they don't care, and they will um, kill people, will do anything in order to get what they want. And perfect examples, as naive as it sounds, would be like Narcos, the show, or movies about drug trafficking. But overall, I hope you understood, yeah, the depth and gravity of the issue that drug trafficking causes to society. And I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much.